We're back in Boulder following our coverage of the Heisman Trophy campaign. And Brian, I don't know, you might have to pinch me. We go from covering a Heisman Trophy ceremony to a press conference talking about a bowl game. And just last night, they picked up the number one ranked defensive lineman in the transfer portal. So things are looking up here around the CU football program.
Yeah, not too bad, and quite a difference from most of the years that we've covered this program, where this is just kind of almost a dead period, and you're kind of waiting for a decent signing day or whatever late December. But yeah, things picking up, and for the Buffs, it's it's kind of back to work. I mean, it's a couple of weeks of all right. You took some time off. A few of the guys were all over the country. Travis and Shador are all over the country picking up awards. But now let's get back to work, and let's focus on BYU. And Coach Prime mentioned, he reiterated, look, he goes, we want to win this football game. I mean, he goes, you don't think Travis wants to win this football game and look good. Shador wants to look good and win this football game. So, he definitely sounded like a guy that they're not looking to just be there and enjoy the festivities. They want to win a football game.
That was something I noticed down there in 2016, spending a lot of time. I know Colorado went back to the Alamo Bowl in 2020, but that was during the pandemic. Yeah. So there wasn't the full slate of activities for these guys once they got down there like there was in 2016. And, frankly, that team was happy to be there. Yeah. They were enjoying it. I hope that this team enjoys it, don't get me wrong, but 10 wins rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, and look, that team in 2016 already had their 10th win, right? And so, this team wants to get that 10th win, and Coach Prime mentioned that too. He goes, that's something that's still out there for them. So, there's a lot of motivation for a lot of guys. I mean, Jimmy Horn has not played much in the last couple of months, and he would love to go out and have a big game. And Chidozie Nwankwo, and Coach Prime talked about there's a lot of guys like Chidozie or Bentley and Horn, guys like that this is their last opportunity to really shine for pro scouts in a college game. I mean, they'll have off-season workouts and all-star games, things like that. But this is their last chance to really put on a show in a college game. So I don't think this team's going to go down there just happy to be there.
And Carter Stottmeyer just walked by as you were talking there, Brian, and it reminds me as he's walking by that these bowl practices, they have not gotten enough of around here because it is an opportunity to allow younger guys to get a little bit more practice time. And it just kind of, for the guys that are going to play in the game that aren't going to be here next year, it's another opportunity to be around their brothers and to kind of celebrate this with the mindset that they're going to try to win that football game. But, this is an opportunity that we haven't gotten around here that now that we do, you kind of see the benefits of what kind of catapults programs into the offseason. You win this game, and clearly that would be the case here.
Yeah, and only third bowl game in 17 years, and one of which you mentioned was kind of a weird year with 2020, and it wasn't the same. So only two real regular bowl games where you got the benefit of those practices much. And the other thing is, redshirts can play in this one, so there's an opportunity we could see, Jeremiah Brown, who jumped in the portal, jumped back out of it after talking to Coach Prime. We learned he told a good story about how that came about. And with Nakai Hill-Green going in the portal, Jeremiah Brown could be a guy that we see playing some linebacker in the Alamo Bowl. So there's opportunities for guys like that. And there's some other red shirts I know that will probably be chomping at the bit to get in there and play a little bit. And, there's some new recruits that they can't play, but they're going to have that opportunity to come and practice and be around the team a little bit too. So there's a ton of benefit to it that you don't get if you don't go to a bowl game.
We had a chance to talk to Coach Prime and both coordinators today. Coach Prime, talking about the portal, said that hinted, and maybe even a strong hint, that they've got more commits coming. Jaheim Otis commits from Alabama, and it's such a big commitment. He's not going to win a Heisman Trophy here, but it is really, really hard to recruit defensive linemen, elite level defensive linemen. It's hard to find guys that can be space eaters and just, take Chidozie Nwankwo walking by right now. And this is a great segue there because Otis is like the same type of playmaker that Nwankwo is, but he's a first off the bus type of guy. Yeah. But going back to my point, it's really hard to recruit that position. You talk to college football recruiters, and that is the hardest position to find guys that are difference makers. I mentioned the fact that it's hard to find guys that can be space eaters. It's even harder, borderline impossible, to find guys like Otis that can be space eaters and disruptors in the backfield as well. And so the rebuild is very much in progress here.
Yeah, and I don't remember where Chidozie ranked in the transfer rankings last year, but I imagine, I mean, if you go back and re-rank it, he'd be one of the top defensive linemen in the portal last year, and they picked a good one, and Otis are hoping the same thing. Like right now, Otis is the number one defensive line transfer, so you hope he can be, if he has a year like Chidozie, you'll take that, and if he's even better, that's great. But if he can be that type of guy. I mean, he's a replacement for that. Shane Cokes, things like that. They need big bodies, and so that's a start. I imagine there's gonna be a lot more because they got I think it's 4 of the defensive linemen, 4 of the 7 are moving on, and so there's gonna be more. But Otis is a nice start.
I got a notification, and I shouldn't even give this the light of day, but it was that Colorado's losing in the transfer portal already, and I'm like, ready to just scream, Brian.
Yeah.
Like, how many times are we going to go through this?
Yeah.
There will be guys that enter the portal, and actually, if you look at it, the guys that have entered the portal here from Colorado were not guys we expected to be in Colorado's program next year. Right. And that includes, unfortunately, linebacker Nakai Hill-Green, who we'd all enjoy watching him. I mean, he was such a joy to watch here this year, but no one was really putting him in pen into the starting lineup in 2025 anyway, and he's got to do what he's got to do from an NIL standpoint. You would hope that would be here at the University of Colorado, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be.
Yeah, and he also went through senior day, and so he could still go that route as well and move on to the NFL. But, he's a guy with 1 year of eligibility that you would have loved to have had back. But, again, you didn't probably pencil him in. And so, Levante Bentley is moving on. So you look at that linebacker group now, and it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. Jeremiah Brown coming back, Trevor Woods, we don't know what he's going to do. Does he come back? If he does he move back to safety? Who knows? Because there's some openings there as well. So linebackers going to look very different. But, yeah, they're going to get some guys. They found Nakai Hill-Green. They found Chidozie. They found all these guys last year. Look at Coach Prime's track record. I put faith in him right now to find guys. And I don't know how excited fans will be at the end of the January window, but don't forget there's the other window coming up later. And so the post-spring window, he's going to find guys too. So, and a lot of these guys, Nakai, came in the summer this last year. So he wasn't even here a year. And so you're going to find guys, whether it's right now or whether it's post-spring.
They also had the top-ranked high school class for the 2025 class in the Big 12 when you look at just the average commit rating. Yeah. And you know what? I'm sorry, 24/7 Sports. They have the best class for high school players in the Big 12. Like TCU has 30 signees. Come on. Yeah. What are we doing there? So that said, Julian Lewis is the headliner there. I had a chance to ask Coach Prime and Pat Shermer both about Julian Lewis today. And the number one thing that stood out about both of those comments is that young man is a winner.
Yeah, they love him, and obviously it sounds like there's a lot of similarities between what he does and what Shedeur does as far as their makeup and things like that. So, you'd have to look at him and say he's, I guess right now the odds-on favorite to be the starter next year, but there's also they got to make over that room as well. And Pat Shermer said they're going to look to add some guys, and they're looking to add a guy potentially with just 1 year left. That screams a guy that's a proven starter that can come in and compete for the starting job.
Caden Salter from Liberty, maybe.
The point is that room is going to be competitive, I think, and so they're not done rebuilding that. And so I think that now that Pat Shermer said it, when they go and sign a guy, with 1 year of eligibility left, I imagine that wasn't the first time Julian Lewis has heard it either. And so I imagine that he knows that as well. And so be ready to compete, and the best man wins. And if it's Julian Lewis, then I think they're in good shape. And if it's the other guy, that means he beat out a really talented 5-star freshman. So I feel confident in those guys that they're going to be good at the quarterback position. And look, Ryan Staub is still there too, and he mentioned Ryan Staub, not by name, but he said we got a guy here too that is still pretty good. And I think Coach Prime mentioned it too, right? That we still have a guy here that's a winner, and so they feel confident in what they have.
That would be the ideal situation at quarterback, wouldn't it be, to have somebody in Ryan Staub that's been in the system, that's been around here, and then you bring in a transfer with 1 year of eligibility that's done a lot of great things at the college level, and then you bring in Julian Lewis and with the mindset that you're handing the keys over to him. Yeah. And it's at that point it's up to him when he's putting the ignition on, right, in terms of his work ethic. And that's the thing that we hear about Julian Lewis, is that he's got that, so they're not worried about it. And part of the reason that he was a top target for them very early, this wasn't like a, sometimes you're scrambling late in the cycle. This Julian Lewis was the guy. Right. They created a burger after him. Yeah. They rolled out the red carpet, and the fans did their job on his official visit. It was really a community effort, which I know in this portal era, like, you want to grab onto that stuff as much as you can, right? And even the stuff with Travis in New York saying "Sco Buffs" and putting up the Buffalo Horns. There's still that feeling of the old school college football that seeps in. But in terms of Julian Lewis, it's going to come down to his work ethic, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And, I mentioned it, but, I'm sure that they've talked to Julian Lewis about, look, we got to bring in guys as well to compete with you and to fill out this roster. And Julian's smart enough. I would imagine if he's any type of competitor, he says, yeah, bring it on, let's go. And any transfer that comes in knows they just signed Julian Lewis. Right. And so they know they got to compete. And so I think anybody you bring in here at this point is going to know what the deal is. So Ryan Staub, if he stays, he knows what the deal is, And so I think that helps that I don't think they're going to be pulling the wool over his eyes and saying, oh, all of a sudden we got this transfer in here, now you got to compete. And so I think it creates healthy competition, and I imagine that's what they're going to do. And you want that in the quarterback room, because the more good guys you have, I think the better you are. And you look at a Texas that Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, Quinn Ewers goes out for a little bit. Well, Arch Manning comes in and keeps that afloat for not only keeps it afloat, but he's pretty darn good, for a few weeks. And so you'd love to have that here as well.
I'm sure Ryan Staub likes the Arch Manning comparison there. That's pretty nice. Yeah. In terms of the bowl game, and we talked to Robert Livingston as well, they're in the same shoes as BYU in terms of this break, in terms of playing football games, the timing of it. I think that probably affects the offense a little bit more than the defense, but Robert Livingston has kind of created that tribe mentality with that group. I don't think we're going to see what we saw out in Kansas City. I think this is going to be a group that's going to be pretty dialed in out in San Antonio.
It's interesting, though. It's the same situation, although BYU's been very under the radar the last couple of weeks because nobody's talking about them, whereas their guys have been all over the country gathering awards, things like that. And so maybe BYU's been able to quietly go about their work a little bit the last couple of weeks. But, yeah, I agree with your point. It's not going to be the same as Kansas City. I think that this team is going to be – I think that was a one-off. It was a one-off for 12 games. I don't expect to see that type of defensive performance in the Alamo Bowl either.
We're going to get a chance to talk to a bunch of players tomorrow, and then we'll have a little break, and we'll be out in San Antonio. So this whirlwind ride that we're on continues here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's better than the Decembers we've had in the past, so I'll take it.
Oh, yeah. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with more analysis.